Hello, hello. Happy Saturday morning? You bet. Since it is Saturday morning, I got my coffee here in my French press. So cheers to everyone drinking coffee. Let's have it together on this absolutely beautiful Saturday morning. As we know, it's a miracle to be alive. Um, Gratitude postures us for the miracles of life. And every day that we get to breathe, every day that we get to be alive is another miracle, another chance for us to flourish and become the best version of ourselves, or another chance to love more deeply or be more present, or whatever the case may be. That's the vibe. Yeah. So today on this stream, I will be live reacting to a podcast episode between Mark Manson and Ryan Holiday from the Daily Stoic podcast. The episode itself is only about 40 minutes long, so I add my commentary in between what they talk about, and I'm sure they're going to talk about stuff that I'm very interested in. That's why I'm going to react to it. It's, two guys in the self-development, personal development, self-help space, Ryan Holiday from the Daily Stoic and Mark Manson, who wrote one of the most popular books in the self-development space called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. They sat down for a podcast. So I decided that I haven't watched the episode, might as well watch it with you guys, react, add my commentary, because I have my own personal development and self-help and mental health podcast called Something for Everybody, which you can certainly check out on all major podcast platforms. So let me share my screen and we will get rocking and rolling. Here we go.
I ate Red Bulls and Reese's cups every morning. I fell asleep with my laptop open on my chest and then would wake up in the middle of the night and continue working.
It's very rare that you find someone that's done something that's really impressive and they did it not as a maniac.
I think fundamentally, to achieve extreme success, you cannot be a balanced person.
I've been thinking a lot about this thing you said.
Also, before we really get going, if you are on TikTok, best place to be is over on YouTube for the full stream, but you can certainly hang out here on TikTok. But there will be a lot of sort of breaks in between where I'm not saying anything or you can't hear me. So you can join me on X or Twitch or YouTube or whatever the case may be. But cheers. Good morning. Here we go.
I think a lot of positive lifestyle changes are a result of
Who is this hustle culture myth benefiting?
I hit a point probably around the pandemic where I was like, I'm going to lose my mind.
I think a big part of it is also like, as you get older, you realize, oh, you can't just.
What I didn't realize at the time is that as your life kind of levels up, the sexiness of the things you should say no to also level up.
It was later in my career that I realized I don't have to blow up my day, because
once you're on that trajectory, you don't want.
Cool. Sounds like it's going to be an interesting conversation. Let's fucking
I've been thinking a lot about this thing you said. You were saying that you want to be careful when you get advice from successful people about balance, because usually they became successful by their fundamental lack of balance.
Correct.
And then they became successful, and then they're thinking retroactively how they wish they used to be, or they're making changes now and then acting as if that is the approach that got them where they are.
Yes. I think a lot of positive.
This is just we're starting off here. Like, so when you're looking around the social media landscape and you're wanting to take advice from people, quote unquote, advice from people, it's not in your best interest to take advice from people who are 30, 40, 50 steps ahead of you, because they're living a totally different existence than you, right? And they don't remember really what it was like when they were just starting out, when they were in the trenches, when they had no following or no money or no anything. There's no such thing as balance when you're trying to do something great at the very beginning. Now, when you've really, quote unquote, made it and you have a team and you can establish boundaries and you really establish yourself in whatever market or domain you're in, of course, then you can establish some harmony, or you have a family and things become more important, right? Then you can establish some harmony. But you want to take advice from people who are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, who are really familiar with the spot that you're currently in, because they were just there and they just sort of got out of it. And then when you hit the sort of escape velocity and you reach the levels of these guys, or like a Joe Rogan or whatever sort of domain you're in, I'm just giving you examples to sort of my domain of podcasting and self-help and things of that nature, then it is appropriate, then it's not really, it doesn't really benefit you to take advice from those people because they kind of forget where they were. Right now, they have more of these champagne type problems. When you're just starting out, of course, you're going to have to be a little bit obsessive. You're not going to have any balance. You're going to have to work harder than anyone else. You're going to have to work 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days. You might have extrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation, or just like, I got to get this fucking thing done, or whatever the case may be. And then you start to build the business, the processes, the systems, the habits, and then you can start to rearrange your life with more harmony, better health, family, whatever the case may be. But it's really, really important to discern what advice you're taking from people and where they're at in the stage of their life, and do you actually want the life they have? I think that's extremely, extremely important. All right, let's keep going.
Lifestyle changes are a result of privilege. And
Mhm.
I don't mean that in like a pejorative way, but
Yeah.
it's like, once you do have the money to do a sauna every day, or, have your like chia, papaya, creatine smoothie in the
Mhm.
morning, like that does feel like the most important thing to you. And so I remember how I was coming up, which was I ate Red Bulls and Reese's cups every morning. I fell asleep with my laptop open on my chest, and then would wake up in the middle of the night and continue working. I just recognized the gap between who I am today and
Yes.
who I was when I was starting, and I try to be realistic about that gap and understand that my perceptual biases might try to convince me that the way I am today is the way I should have always been,
Yes.
but that probably wasn't realistic back then.
Yeah, it's funny, we were just talking about ancient philosophy and the thing
Oh, that's my boy Rob. What's up, Rob? Happy to see you on here, man.
we recorded, but, Plato's idea of the cave, like, you think what's important when you're in the cave.
But Mark, the good thing about Mark Manson is that he is extremely self-aware, and I do appreciate that. Right? He understands, like, when I was starting out in my professional wrestling career, I used to be a professional wrestler. Now I'm a podcaster and I just talk for a living, but I used to be a professional wrestler like WWE. And we would travel in three or four in cars. We would cram in the car together. We would, eat at gas stations and have ramen, and we'd bring our sheets with us so we wouldn't, because the hotels we stayed in were really dirty, and we'd, all those types of things. And or we'd sleep in the car, or we just, get together a few bucks and buy one room with one bed, even though it'd be four dudes. It's like you just do whatever you possibly can in pursuit of the dream that you love. And then you hope at one point in your life it doesn't have to be that way, because you've built the sort of privilege where you can, like Mark is saying, do the sauna and eat the chia seeds and have vacations and boundaries and teams and all these types of things. But that just doesn't happen at the very beginning of your journey. The very beginning of your journey is a fucking grind, and you have to work. And that is going to be the most important thing.
And then you come out of the cave and then you're like, whoa, no, I had it totally wrong.
Yeah.
And there is a good impulse to want to come back and be like, hey, this thing that you're stressed about is not nearly as important as you think it is.
Mm.
Or this way that you're doing it, it doesn't actually have to be that way. So there is that good impulse. But yeah, there's a luxury of once you have made it or once you're good to be able to be like, yeah, just take it easy, do it slow. It's very rare that you find someone that's done something that's really impressive or big and they did it not as a maniac. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
I mean, we talk about this all the time in sport. We all the time in sport. Like, Dr. Michael Gervais talks about this. Is like there is a dark side to elite performance. And it is sort of the fact that you do have to get hyper obsessive about this one thing if you want to be elite in anything. And this is really important for parents to understand when when they have their young kids and they're hyper specializing in one sport. It's sort of going to ruin the kid's chances of being a well-rounded kid. And at some point, yes, you do want to specialize in the sport, maybe about 14, 15, 16, heading into high school, because you really want to get good at that one thing. But you should be doing all sorts of things, because at some point you do have to then get hyper obsessive and sort of become a crazy maniac person if you want to be elite at this one thing. But now we're learning more and more about recovery protocols and rest and how important that is, and all these types of things that can make you sort of a more healthy and robust version of yourself, and that attaches to your identity and all those types of things that we've talked about. But like, if you want to be great, there is going to be periods of your life where you have to become ultra obsessive. Like that's the vibe. Every person I've known, whether it's in baseball when I was playing baseball, or when I was in a professional wrestling, or I'm in podcasting or social media or content, it's like those people become obsessed about that thing. And then over time, as they grow and learn and expand about who they are and where they could be, then they start to have those boundaries and emotional parameters, and they implement some of these more healthy tactics and things of that nature. But it's never, ever, ever that way at the beginning, ever.
Fundamentally, to achieve extreme success, you cannot be a balanced person. Like
Yes.
that's just that just strikes me as obviously true.
And yet it's very hard to sustain success as a maniac or
Yes.
as an unbalanced person. And so that's the transition of like, especially if you do it and you're like, no, my goal isn't to get in and get out.
Yes.
I want to have a long career as a baseball player, or I want to write books my whole life, or
Yeah.
I want to not go through 5 marriages. You know, like
Yes.
then all of a sudden
Yeah.
you realize a lot of those habits or practices that were adaptive for one set of goals, which was like go big or go.
Hey, just a quick reminder, if you joined over on TikTok, best place to be for the full streams on YouTube, or you'll just hear some silence between when I pause the show and when I talk. So cheers. Also check out the merchandise we got linked down below.
Home, you know, get rich, die trying. Well, if you keep trying, you're going to die.
Right. These days, I kind of think of it as volatility. So early on, volatility works in your favor. So if you have nothing,
Yeah.
you want as much volatility as possible, because if things go south, well, you have nothing to lose. So
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
But things can go north very, very easily,
Yeah.
right? But then once you're on that trajectory and you've kind of achieved the escape velocity, you don't want volatility. Like you don't want wild swings in your fortune.
Yeah. Or your mood or your health.
Right. When everything is going great and you've built this amazing career and financial security and family and everything, like you want to minimize volatility so you can maintain that trajectory. So those biases are apparent on both sides. It's the same thing. It's like startup founders are always talking about how you should be a maniac, which makes sense, because to get a startup off the ground, you have to be
Sure.
out of your mind and work all the time.
Then they become investors, and then I think they have a vested interest in you being a maniac.
Yes.
Because they don't want a founder.
It's just about, knowing what season you're at in your life. Like that's what they're talking about, right? There's going to be different stages. I mean, when I was a young man, like, yeah, I was more focused on myself and wrestling and traveling the world, and it was very selfish. Then things happened in my life where I changed, my perspective changed. Now I'm a husband and a father. And so those are the most important elements of my life. So how can I arrange my schedule and my work so that I can be as present as humanly possible for my wife and kid, while also still being able to provide them with a great and fulfilling life? And so that's the sort of harmony I'm trying to have. But when I'm working, I'm working. When I'm with them, I'm with them. And there's always going to be different seasons of your life where you pour into one thing more than another thing. That just is what it is, right? My son is 3 months old. So we're really focused on him because he takes the most amount of time right now as like a little person. And I'm going to be a dad now the rest of my life until I die. And so a lot of my energy is always going to go towards that. So you got to think of where you're at in the season of your life. What's most important to you right now? What are you trying to do? What are your targets, right? All those types of things are going to be important, right? Clarity is really important. It's probably the most important word when it comes to success in life. I just recorded a podcast episode, basically a goal setting masterclass episode that'll be released early in 2026. And one of the words that kept popping up when I was filming that episode and researching for it is clarity. You have to really know what you want and where you're headed. And then what are like the daily actions, process, and steps that are going to get me there. It's really important stuff.
Under prioritizing their marriage or their relationship with their kids over this investment they've put in.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of something of like, yeah, who is this sleep at your desk, sleep when you're dead, like burn the candle at two ends, hustle culture myth? Who is it benefiting?
Yeah.
Not the individual for the most part, but like the people who are trying to harness the power of said individual.
Yeah. I like in my own life, I like the fact that I know I can go there if I need it, right?
Mhm.
Like, so if I have a stretch, like let's say like this year, I started a second business like a maniac.
Yeah.
But I know I have that on button, right? It's like, okay, I can do this for 6 months. I've been there before. I've done it a few times in my career. Like I can work like a crazy person and sacrifice a lot of balance in other areas of my life. So I think it's useful to have it as a skill, but you need to be able to turn it off when you need to.
In the Robert Caro books on Lyndon Johnson, he talks about, he's like, I got it, but I have it on a leash. You know, you have to have that killer instinct. But if you're all
Mindy, good morning. Good morning. For those on TikTok, full stream over on YouTube or Twitch.
killer instinct all the time, you'll probably kill yourself.
Yeah.
But I feel like a couple years ago, kind of at the height of your success, not that you're not more successful now, but you could do anything you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You'd done it. You kind of made a bunch of changes. Mm-hmm. You did that cliche thing a little bit. not that you were giving cliche advice, but you were like, no, I'm not going to keep living this way. What were the changes you feel like you made?
There were significant changes, both in terms of lifestyle and I guess professional changes. I'll start with the lifestyle because that's more straightforward. I was a very volatile person when I was younger, right? So there were very few parties that I would turn down. There were, if you ever wanted somebody to join you for an exciting night out, I was your guy. I was always the last person to leave the dance floor. I was pretty much up for anything at any time, which I think served me well when I was young. A, because, you have the energy, but also B, because experiences, I think novel experiences are more valuable.
Sure.
You learn more about who you are and what.
I mean, I agree with that, right? It's like when you're young and we all have responsibilities. Everyone has responsibilities. You have responsibility to yourself first and foremost, but when you don't have a family or kids or whatever the case may be, it's like life is built on experience. That's how you talk about shit, right? The only way you can grow as a person is to experience stuff, right? I did a full episode 441 of the podcast. It's available right now about it's basically your guide to reflecting on your 2025. And experiences aren't enough to fuel growth. It's experiences plus reflection equals growth. And so the only way to have experiences, especially when you're young, is to go and do shit, say yes to everything, have a good time. Of course, you're going to make mistakes and things are going to happen. And maybe I don't know, right? I didn't really regret anything that I did in my 20s. I had a great time. Maybe I should have calmed down at certain points or not had that extra drink or whatever the case may be, right? But it's those are the experiences that sort of shape you. And then when you do, grow and mature and gain more responsibility and knowledge of who you are and where you want to be and the direction you want to go in, it's more flushed out because you've had so many different experiences. Now let's see what Mark has to say.
Type of people there are in the world and what you like. But as I got older and the responsibilities and obligations of my career started to stack up, that just started, those sorts of decisions became more irresponsible over time. So I really just have buttoned up my personal life quite a bit. I stopped drinking. I don't really go out anymore. I moved to California. I now drink papaya creatine smoothies every morning. And I don't necessarily recommend everybody do that all the time because, there are different seasons of life, but it has.
This is a good comment here from Rob that I want to read out loud. Rob said, hits close to home. I left Tennessee to do sales for 6 months, but only stayed 2. I wasn't prepared for the 60, 70 hours of working, but now I think I'm ready to just embrace the suck and grind again. Yeah, dude. I mean, sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes we are ready, we aren't ready. And we got to just make that decision. And that's a cool, mindset shift that Rob is having there, recognizing that he wasn't prepared and now recognizing that he is ready. And that's really fucking cool that he's ready to embrace it and grind and do the thing that he knows he wants to do. And that's a really powerful self-awareness tool that Rob is displaying there that I think we all need to have, right? It's awareness, acceptance, and action. Now, Rob has already done the awareness. He's already accepted it. Now he's moving into action, which is the most important part.
Has had a very positive effect in terms of dulling the volatility. On the professional side, there's this funny transition that happens in your career and you never know exactly where it's going to happen. So early in your career, you need to say yes to everything because you don't know what's going to work. You don't know what's going to help you break through. Late in your career, or once you've become successful or achieved a certain amount of success, you need to say no to most things. but that inflection point it's very unclear where that inflection point is. And it's always, you're never sure if you're actually nailing it. So I hit a point probably around the pandemic where I was like, I need to start saying no to things or I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
Because this is just way too much. So I think I would say what I've gotten much better at the last few years is just being very conscious of the projects I choose.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the same thing I stated before. It's like understanding your season of life. Say yes. Say yes. You don't know what opportunity is going to help you break through. You don't know what person or what relationship you might build. Um, you just don't know what might be the thing that helps you have the breakthrough in your mind or that relationship or that connection. And really, life is about relationships. So if you're saying yes to that coffee or that going out or that party or that trip, it's like, this could be a lifelong relationship or partnership, which is way really more important than anything that happens in your life. And then you reach a certain point, and like Mark is saying, it's hard to know that delineation. Like, have I reached the escape velocity? Do I need to focus on this one thing right here? And so that sort of process is hard. But that's why it's really important to have those relationships, right? To bounce those ideas off of. And then it's really important what you say no to, because as you get more quote unquote successful, whatever the fuck that means, the more shiny and sexier the things that are going to be thrown at you are. Like, you would have said yes to all of these things that you're being offered now, but you're never going to be offered them when you have nothing to give. But now that you are somebody, quote unquote, you're always somebody, and everyone's valuable and capable and all that type of stuff. Everyone has intrinsic value and everyone's made in the divine image of God. But you understand what I'm saying? Now that society deems you as quote unquote valuable, you're getting thrown all this money and sponsors and this and that, when we could have definitely used that when we were fucking eating ramen and, sleeping in our car. And so it's just so interesting, sort of the vibe shift that happens. But Mark is so right that there's that point where you just don't know. Is this the time where I start to say pretty much no to everything until the one thing comes along that's super aligned with my values, because I do know my values now because I've had so many different experiences. And that's really important. Rob says, you've been a huge help in pushing me forward, Aaron. Much love, man. Much love to you, Rob. You're the fucking man. Thank you. Here we go. Back on it. Let's go.
The things that I commit myself to, the things that I invest my time and money into, and really, really making sure that it's like a fuck yes before I do it, instead of just being like, oh, wow, that's a big number. Sure. And then 6 months later, regretting.
It's funny because you wrote that article a long time ago.
Yeah.
Do you find, I find this all the time, where like you write something, you say something, and obviously you meant it.
Yes.
And obviously you were applying it at some level. And then you go, it's not that I didn't know what I was talking about. I definitely knew what I was talking about. I just didn't fully integrate what I was talking about. Like, and now it's like, oh, now I have to really do this.
It's funny because we just recorded a long podcast on Stoicism for my podcast right before we started recording this. And we were like, one of the last things you and I talked about was how if philosophy is not just something you read and understand, it has to be a daily consistent practice. And that's actually the hard part of it.
Yes.
Like reading a book is not the hard part. I think this is just another example of that. In the case of the fuck yes or no thing,
I mean, that's the important part here about, you can consume all of the self-help and personal development information you want. You can consume all the mindset tips, and you can read about the thing. You can journal about the thing. You can watch the podcast about the thing, but nothing ever in your life is ever, 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 ever going to change unless you do the thing, unless you take action. Like, that is it. That is it. Are you a girl dad or a boy dad? I'm a boy. I got a boy. My son's name is Asher. Yeah, if you're on TikTok, full stream over on YouTube. But yeah, definitely check out the Dad Club merch that we got linked down below. It's pretty sweet stuff. We got hoodies, hats, t-shirts, all that type of stuff in the TikTok shop. But again, if you consume a bunch of mindset and mental health stuff, but you never actually apply it to your life, then you're really not doing anything. You're just sort of masquerading as trying to be busy or productive when really you're kind of scared to do the thing, because the only thing that's going to help you do the thing better or get better is by doing the thing. So like awareness, acceptance, action, 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 action. We become aware, we're accepting, but now we have to actually move into action, which is doing the thing over and over and over and over again. And that's the most important part. And I think that's where a lot of people who consume self-help and personal development and read books and journal about it and watch podcasts, that's where they get stuck. They think that's just going to make their life better, when really, yes, now they have the information, they have to apply it to their lives. But they don't want to apply it to their lives because that's going to be hard and lonely and difficult and uncomfortable. Rather just consume more information to say they know this stuff conceptually, but there's no actually doing the thing in real life. And that's where a lot of people, I think, get stuck. I mean, it's always going to be about action. Always, always, always. So you have enough information. Like if you listen to my podcast or anyone else's podcast like this, and my podcast is called Something for Everybody, by the way, you have enough information. Use the information you have and apply it, then come back, reflect on those experiences, and then use that as fuel for your growth. But it's always going to be action. So let's see what else Mark has to say.
Which for people listening who aren't familiar with it, it's the simple adage that if it's not a fuck yes, it should be like any significant decision. If it's not a fuck yes, then it should be a no. Of dating, it was useful in a lot of kind of simple, oh, should we buy this couch? It's really expensive. Well, it's not a fuck yes, then I guess not. What I didn't realize at the time is that as your life kind of levels up, the sexiness of the things you should say no to also level up.
Yes.
Right? So there are things today that you and I should say no to that our 25-year-old selves dreamt of.
It seems irresponsible to say no to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is the higher up the mountain you climb, the more difficult those no's become.
Yeah.
And I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, oh, I got this no thing down. And then, Subtle Art blows up, bunch of new book deals come in, movie deal comes in,
Yeah, you got all your no's figured out till someone offers you, $60,000 or $1 million to do this book deal and this thing and that thing and all this. It's like, man, where was this when I fucking was broke and I needed it and I had no money? Now that I have some sort of success and notoriety and influence, I get offered all of these fucking things when most of them should be a no. I mean, I'm I don't know whatever level you want to put me on, it doesn't actually matter. But I made a decision with my podcast to be self-funded because I didn't want any weird sponsors. I didn't want to talk about VPM or gold or, what all these weird stuff that most of these podcasters talk about. I wanted to self-fund and have my podcast be sponsored by my own businesses. So it's taken me a longer time to make money, but it's still all mine. And that's more important to me now. I don't know what's going to happen if someone offers me, $20 million. Maybe I'll fall back and my values won't be as clear as I say they are. So then you can give me a hard time about that then. But right now, that's where I'm at. Yes, exactly, Rob. Like you said, I think he's in a position leveled up to say no. I'm at a level low enough where I need to say yes, yes, yes. Yeah, fucking right. It's yes, yes, yes. Like you never know what's going to happen, what's going to come through because of it. Like those experiences could be life changing. That's why I appreciate both of these guys, because they understand the perspective. They understand, like Mark Manson understands where he was at before his book blew up and became one of the biggest books in the world. Ryan Holiday understood all this before he had, the Daily Stoic and all these types of things. Hey, for 20 million, we're all folding. Yeah. Fuck the values for 20 million, right? Yeah, probably so, Rob.
Smith shows up, like I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And I basically had to learn that lesson all over again.
It's like you were playing high school basketball and then college basketball and professional basketball, and then you're playing in
the Olympics or something.
The playoffs and then the championship.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same game, but just the stakes are higher and the other people are better. And the problems you're solving in that game are different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it feels irresponsible to say no to some things. It feels ungrateful to say no to certain things. And you're really bad. I think humans are really bad at calculating opportunity costs.
Yeah.
Like I know if I don't do a speaking gig, I know exactly how much money that costs, even though it doesn't actually cost any money, but I know what I'm not getting. There's no way to know what the individual toll of one thing is on a marriage, is on a relationship with a friend, is with your health, is with your overall productivity, is with the burnout that you are slowly, steadily progressing towards. And that's the trap of it.
Yeah. And it's like you said, I think to a certain extent, you have to make a lot of those mistakes to develop that awareness. I do feel like I am a little bit better at having that awareness of, so like I took a speaking gig overseas.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's life is all about falling down and getting back up. Like you can't learn anything unless you have mistakes, right? Not mistakes, mistakes. Yeah, I did a whole episode about just recently released about using your 2025 as reflection, as fuel for your growth going into 2026. And that's wins, losses, setbacks, failures, obstacles, challenges, all those types of things jumbled into one thing, using those experiences, reflecting on them, and adding that for fuel for our growth in 2026. So we're not repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, because it doesn't matter how many times you experience them, you're going to keep repeating those mistakes until you actually reflect, learn the lesson, and move forward in that regard. And so, again, I created a podcast episode that's sort of a guide for that. But making mistakes is important. If we pretend everything's perfect or we're perfect, then we have no space for growth. I mean, there's never, ever, ever, ever been a perfect person to ever exist. And you and I certainly will not be the first ones. And so I think that's important to understand. It's also extremely freeing. It's also extremely freeing. And a lot of times we don't want to get judged by others, but most people are too consumed with their own brain about what you might be thinking about, they're thinking about, this person's thinking about, to even care what you're doing. Now, they might comment on it in real time or drop a note, but then they forget about it because they're too consumed about what's going on with their own life. And that's pretty much everyone. Just think about yourself, how much you're consumed with what other people are thinking about, you're thinking about, like all that fucking mental math that's happening. We might as well just go do the thing. We might as well just go do the thing. And on the same regard, it's like we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Like, think about this. Okay. John Cena recently retired from WWE. John Cena, over the last 23 years, has been the staple of WWE. He is the greatest WWE superstar of all time and one of the most popular people on the planet. He did an episode with Joe Rogan. John Cena retired on December 13th. John Cena claimed that in 3 weeks after his retirement, so about 14 days later, that people are going to completely forget about him. And he's probably right. So the greatest of all time in TV shows, movies, millions of followers, people are going to forget about his retirement and him as a wrestler 3 weeks after he's done. Then what are they going to think about you and that random post you made that you thought was cringy? Just go fucking post it. Do the thing, right? Do the thing. That's so important. Like you have the ability to do that. And the world needs you. The world needs your unique gifts and talents and attributions and everything you have to offer. It's so important. And you're going to fall down. You're going to look cringy, right? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be dumb. Dr. Jordan Peterson says all the time, you have to be willing to be a fool to advance. Think about those things. Think about that. Anyway, so let's jump back in.
A month or two ago, I do very few speaking gigs these days for exactly the reasons that we're talking about. And it's funny because I took it and I had checked in the hotel. I'd maybe been in the hotel for an hour before I was like, I'm an idiot. Yeah. I should have stayed home. I should never have said yes to this. Like, what am I doing here? I just flew 13 hours to get here. And it is a lesson that keeps coming up time after time. But I do feel like the calibration it gets better.
Do you have any good systems or rules? Like, how do you get, because to me, it's often about saving me from myself.
Yes.
Like if I have it, if I think I can do it, if no one is saying that's a bad idea, I'll probably do it.
Yeah. So in the case of speaking, I initially had fuck yes or no, but then it's like every speaking opportunity, especially if there's a bunch of money attached, it feels like a fuck yeah. When you get the email, you're like, fuck yeah.
Right.
I'll go hang out in this country and get paid for it. So then I created a rule. I was like, okay, it needs to be a speaking opportunity that I would be interested in or enjoy, even if I wasn't getting paid for it. Like that became the rule for a while. But then I noticed that I was still convincing myself, like, oh yeah, of course, I'll go hang.
I've never been there, even though you could go there for any reason at any time.
Exactly. Exactly. Or I have a friend that lives there. I haven't seen in 4 years. Like I could have dinner with them. Meanwhile, you're not processing that you're going to fly to London and have dinner with a friend.
Yeah. Also, you haven't texted or called that person.
Right. In 4 years.
Yes. You could do something about it right now, but now you're
Exactly.
I mean, it is kind of hilarious. Like the fucking hoops our brain will jump through to sort of conceptualize doing the thing when we really don't want to do the thing, but we know we potentially should do the thing. And like, it's interesting. It's like, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, right? Intrinsic motivation is like, I'm doing the thing because I simply just love doing the thing. And now sometimes in life, we have to do things simply because we have to do them, right? Or I need money, I need this, I need that. And sometimes we're extrinsically motivated. Sometimes I just want the outcome. I want to do this thing because I'm going to get paid and that's what I need. But throughout your life, hopefully you can switch to a part where you're doing things simply because you love doing them. And also potentially you might get paid for them. And then you start to have this dichotomy of like feeling grateful or not grateful for saying no to the thing, but there's a lot of money in the thing. It gets a very complicated sense. And, I think Mark is really expressing that in a pretty good way right here about some of the struggles that you might go through once you do reach a certain level. But again, these guys might be at a different space and time than you currently at if you're watching or listening to this. And so there might be different rules of the game that we're going to have to follow. And so not everything is always going to apply to your specific situation. That's why it's important to, listen, learn, reflect, and then actually apply to how it specifically fits to the thing you want to do and where you're at in your life currently. Also, if you're on TikTok, jump over to YouTube if you want the full stream and check out the merchandise that we got linked down below. Cheers. Here we go.
So that failed. And then I realized that like I still couldn't trust my brain. And so now my process is I've told my head of operations to literally not show me any speaking opportunities unless she believes that they could fundamentally change my career.
Oh.
So that is the current rule.
And then the irony is you don't miss the things that you don't know about.
Exactly.
The dilemma is only there because someone told you about the thing. Like for me, it's like I sometimes, again, these are all privileged. So I understand if people are like rolling their eyes, but like it was later in my career that I realized I don't have to blow up my day because some random radio station read something I wrote and the host wanted me to have me on and they have a slot at 2:15 Central Time. Do I want to do it?
Yeah.
And the ease at which I would be like, well, I had all these plans, but this is the job. You should do it. And then just to the ability to be like, well, I'm not going to do it. That takes a certain amount of discipline. But just getting rid of a press request thing on my website just meant I don't get the requests anymore. And I don't know what I'm not doing. And I'm fine.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't happening, you would be fine.
Yeah. To bring this back, to bring like a much simpler example that also from my personal life. So as part of that, like getting my lifestyle in order, I lost a ton of weight, as you know. Between 2020 and 2024, I lost about 60 pounds and struggled quite a bit through that period. There were a lot of plateaus and rebounds and, it was
I mean, congratulations to Mark. That's hard. No matter what stage you're at in life, no matter where your health is at, making the choice and the decision to get into shape, lose 60 pounds, change your eating habits, your moving habits, is really, really hard. And kudos to anyone who's done that. And kudos to anyone who continues to prioritize their health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, because it's really all we have. We only have this one body and mind, this one life, and we might as well try and take care of it as best we possibly can. Never going to be perfect. Already stated that, but as best we possibly can. And I think about the 4 fundamentals of eating well, moving well, sleeping well, and thinking well. If we can dial in on those as much as humanly possible as sort of non-negotiables in our life with small little habits that fit into those each buckets, I think we're going to be much more resilient and capable and able to bounce back and take care of ourselves and have energy and zest for life than if we weren't prioritizing eating, moving, sleeping, and thinking. So let's see what Mark has to say again. But enjoying this episode so far. I mean, I've only seen 15 minutes of it. I talked for a lot of it. Great.
A very jagged line down. And I struggled a lot with the eating part of it. And it was funny because it was a very similar process. And then, okay, initially, I'm like talking to my health coach and we're like, okay, these are the calories, these are the macros, like don't eat desserts, don't drink too much, don't whatever. I'm like, got it. This is easy, right? Well, you go out on a weekend or, do a quick trip with the wife, or maybe it's your anniversary or something. Right. And like there's this very quickly you find that there's almost always a reason of like, well, what's one little dessert tonight? Or, I had one glass of wine, but what's a second glass of wine? You make these little concessions that feel like a one-off to you, but you're actually making them like almost every single day.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they end up to you not losing any weight. So eventually I was like, okay, you know what? I need to have like rules for myself. So I had rules of no desserts, no alcohol on weekdays, like created all these rules for myself. Well, even then I would still start finding like reasons of like, well, I haven't seen my brother in 6 months and, he just got married last year and we're having a great night. And so, like, who am I to spoil this evening or whatever? Anyway, long story short, I literally got to the point where I'm like, I just went to my wife. I said, I'm not eating at a restaurant for the next 30 days. Like, period.
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm in the environment,
yeah,
my brain is going to start lying to me and I'm going to make up all these stupid reasons to like start eating a bunch of crap that I shouldn't be eating. Whereas if I'm at home, I'm stuck to the stuff that's in the fridge. I'm okay.
Yeah.
This is the idea of willpower, right? There's this idea that you want to basically buy your willpower at the store. That's why they say never go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because you're going to buy a bunch of stuff that you normally wouldn't buy or potentially shouldn't buy that you know is not good for you because you're starving when you go to the grocery store. So, right, if you don't want to eat junk food or candy or dessert after dinner, what's the best thing to do is not have it in the house because it causes a lot of friction. Well, now I'm in the house. And I want to eat something post dinner that's sort of sweet. To get something, I have to get in my car. I have to drive. I have to go to the gas station, to the store, and get it, or I have to get on my phone and order something. It like creates a bit of friction between you and the thing you want by buying your willpower at the store. And that's just an analogy. You can sort of use it for anything you want in your life, right? If you don't want to look at your phone immediately after waking up in the morning, all right, well, let's buy our willpower at the store. Let's keep our phone downstairs or in another room so that if we want to use our phone when we wake up in the morning, we have to get up, get out of bed, walk, go somewhere, open the phone. That causes friction between you and the thing you don't want to do. And so similar to what Mark is talking about here, I don't want to sort of lie to myself and convince myself that this thing is okay. So I'm just not going to let it happen. I'm going to buy my willpower at the store. And so I think that's really important. Let's see what Rob said over on YouTube. I think it's really important for self-respect and confidence to take action and less overall anxiety or fear. I truly felt the best when I was consistently lifting and playing sports. Fuck yeah. Same, Rob. Absolutely. Me too, man. All right, let's get back to Mark. Here we go.
It's like, I think of this as like knowing when not to trust myself.
Yeah.
There's this cliche of like, trust yourself.
Yeah.
You know best, whatever. That's true in some cases, right? But I mean, I've learned in the case of accepting speaking gigs and in the case of eating desserts or drinking alcohol, I can't trust myself.
I heard the definition of an addiction is when you have lost the freedom to abstain. Like when you no longer can be like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And I think we all have those things. And then
they're talking about trust, right? I also talked about this in the recent episode I filmed for my podcast about goal setting or target setting. And I really talked about the foundation for greatness is self-trust. How do you build trust? Well, confidence literally means intense trust in oneself. So confidence is intense trust in oneself. And so that means that confidence relates to your self-trust, and that's the foundation for your greatness. How do you build that trust in yourself? Very simple, through evidence, by keeping the little promises you make to yourself. I've never met an elite performer in my whole life or had them on my show or work with them ever in my life, and no matter what domain, that doesn't do what they say they're going to do. They keep those little promises they make to themselves. And that's how you build the evidence. And that evidence relates to your confidence, which relates to your self-trust, which gives you the trust that you can make decisions in different environments because you've built that thing up. And I think that's an important idea to understand. So here we go.
That's where the discipline is not, well, just try harder not to do the things.
Yeah.
It's how do you outsmart the part of yourself that is failing to not do the things.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said, like, if you're relying on willpower, you've lost.
Yes.
It's over. Like,
Yes.
you shouldn't even put yourself in the spot where you're having to make a decision between the.
Just what I said, buy your willpower at the store. Buy it at the store.
Dessert and the salad, or, you know, flying to Dublin, or.
Also, if you're on TikTok and you want to watch the full stream, head over to YouTube and also check out the merchandise that we got linked down below. Cheers.
Staying home with your kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're in that spot and struggling to make that decision, you've failed yourself to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's all easier said than done. And then it's like, it's the day-to-dayness of it.
Yeah.
And then I think also though, like I've sort of been practicing this thing of like more often than not. Like more often than not am I making the right choice.
Mhm.
Right. So it's like, with the exception of the things that are like obvious.
Yeah, like 80%. And like the thing that Ryan just said there about it's like the day-to-day, every day. It's like no matter what stage you're at in life, you're never going to be exonerated from the work. It's an endlessly evolving process. Endlessly basically until you die. We're always evolving, things are changing, and it's a process, it's a system. And we have to, like he says, try our best to make the next right choice. And yeah, it's really quite powerful. Rob said, damn, that stuff about confidence was insanely true. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I've thought a lot about it. Yeah, so about, we want to try and nail these things about 80% of the time, right? Because life is challenging, it's hard. There's going to be setbacks, there's going to be things that happen, there's going to be just stuff that's uncontrollable, right? And so if you can really nail it like 80% of the time, we're fucking crushing it. And that's what Ryan's saying here. I forgot the exact words he just used, but let's see.
Obviously such destructive things that you can have none of them in your life. But like, how am I getting better, or more often than not, deciding to do this thing that's like consistent with the person that I want to be, or the values? Does that make sense? Like, am I saying no more often than not? Am I saying no to the dessert more? Like, how just consistently can you get better at doing it? And that's progress. Now, obviously, sometimes you have these hard rules, but just like going like, hey, I'm trying to just get better at doing it. You're never going to be perfect at the thing. The thing is how over the course of your life do you get better at this really tough thing that, by the way, most people are not even aware of.
So I was listening to this interview between, I believe it was Patrick Bet-David and Tom Brady. This is one of my favorite insights of all time from Tom Brady specifically. And Patrick Bet-David, I believe, asked him, hey, Tom, did you ever think about, becoming the greatest quarterback of all time? Was that ever your goal? And Tom said, no. My only goal, Tom Brady said this, my only goal was to be the best at getting better. That was my only goal. Be the best at getting better. And I think that's a brilliant idea for all of us to adopt, because it's not an outcome. It's not something we don't have control over. It's not something like out there in the ether that's like sort of esoteric and hard to grab onto. It's like, no, I'm going to dominate the things that I'm in full control over, and I'm going to be the best at getting better. And then you never know what's going to happen, right? We don't have full control over it, but we have an influence over it. Talk about target setting. Our direction is more important than our speed. And so I'm going to be fully in control of the things that matter most to me. And that's being the best at getting better. And in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, where can I be? Great. That's my goal as a dad. That's my goal as a husband. That's my goal as a podcaster. It's to be the best at getting better. And we'll see where we fucking land at. And that gives us something to work towards and strive towards every single day. And that framework can be applied to any aspect of your life, whatever it's business, parenting, working, relationships, whatever the case may be. And so thanks, Tom Brady, for the insight.
As like a
end up.
Yeah.
It's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, 2019 Mark.
Yeah.
If you told me like, oh, just do more often than not, like I'm drunk 3 nights.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I'm drunk almost every night.
Yes.
Whereas today, I do operate on them more often than not, you know, with food and exercise and everything, and it's working. It's okay, but I had to go through that period of hard rules and basically treating myself like an untrained dog.
Yes.
It's like once the inner dog is trained, then you can let it loose and off the leash. But until it's trained, you have to keep it.
Well, the interesting thing is that it's because you spent the first 30 plus years training yourself.
Well, it's like it's kind of how I viewed a morning routine. If you go look at my really earlier podcast episodes, I mean, I just released episode 441 yesterday, right? So if you go look at like the 100s or the 200s, I was really adamant about like a very very strict morning routine because in that moment of my life, I needed it. I needed the hour to sort of wake up and get myself moving in the right direction and build these different habits and systems and protocols because there was so much unstructure in my life from wrestling for so long and staying up late hours and drinking and all these types of things that I needed that morning structure to really get me going in the right direction because I wanted to build this thing that I was trying to build. Now my morning routine is less structured, but there are certain things that have become non-negotiables that I just do on autopilot. I also have a newborn at home, right? He's 3 months old, so some things in the morning get a little hectic, but um, there's going to be certain moments in your life where you're going to be a lot more strict on certain things to make sure those habits become robust. And then as time passes on and you lead into a different stage of life, you're going to pick and choose which ones really work best for you. And you're going to be able to do them sort of on autopilot. So it is different, again, different seasons, different times of your life. There are going to be different sort of rules and implementations like Ryan and Mark are currently talking about. So let's get back to it.
To do the thing,
Right.
And just desire outcome, or offer accept. It's hard to turn on a dime and be like, no, I'm actually the person.
No, I'm not in Jersey. I'm in Texas. But if you're on TikTok, check out the merch we got linked down below, and also full stream over on YouTube. Cheers.
And that like doesn't jump on opportunities now.
Yeah.
Like I got here because I'm that person.
Yes.
So your identity's tied up in it.
Yeah.
And then I think, it was interesting you're saying about like, the habits you can get away with when you're younger. I think a big part of it is also like, as you get older, you realize, oh, you can't just brute force this anymore.
Yeah.
Like there are things that like I think like habits and routines, this isn't just me as like a person with success and whatever to be able to be like, oh, I'm just describing something unattainable. It's more like, no. Early on, I could write on the back of a crowded bus, or, I could write with no sleep.
Yep.
I could just do the thing on sheer energy. And now it's like, no. If I am like not taking care of sleep and not taking care of food and I'm not controlling environment, I can't, it's not that your ability declines, but your raw willpower declines. And so to continue to perform at the same level, you have to find other areas to elevate what you're doing, or you'll fall off.
I think the age thing is a really good point. I don't know if it's that the willpower declines. I would say the margin for error declines, right? Like when I think back to my 20-year-old self or 25-year-old self, yeah, I could go out, I could drink all night, I could party, and I could sleep 3 hours and then wake up and bang out a whole day of work.
Yeah.
And it was no problem. Today, I would be dead. Like it would.
I mean, just thinking of that, like, wrestling wise, we would, when I was really running and gunning as a professional wrestler, I was an independent one. We would wrestle Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And some nights, it would be a different town each night. Some there'd be car rides in between to get to shows. Sometimes it would be plane rides, and we would party into the middle of the night. Sometimes I would, party till 2 or 3 in the morning. Then my flight would be at 6 a.m. I'd go to the airport. I'd sleep on the airport floor, barely make it on my plane, get out, try to go to the hotel when I landed, shower, and do it all over again. It's like if I tried to do any of that now, I'd be fucking done for like 3 days. I had my bachelor party because I got married in September of 2024, had my bachelor party in May of 2024, and really not a big drinker anymore by any means. And we had one like pretty heavy night of drinking, and I was like just done for the whole next day. I had so many plans that I wanted to do, and it's like I can't do that now, and don't want to, because I'm too hyper focused on my health, my longevity, how I feel, my productivity, what I want to feel like when I wake up in the morning, how restful my sleep is, and all that type of stuff. I heard Joe Rogan talking about it recently with Shane Gillis. Like, I like drinking. It's fun. I think it all should be done in moderation. But I just am too focused on how I feel and how I want to feel and how I want to feel in 30, 40, 50 years from now. That makes a big difference on the alcohol I consume. And I can also have a plenty good time without it. If I'm with friends or my family, like there's no need to do it. And alcohol is one of those drugs that it's like so commonplace in our culture to use, and it shouldn't. It's a very dangerous thing. There are some benefits, and potentially for social situations, and maybe I'll discuss that at another time. But it's like the only drug in the world where if you don't do it, people assume you have a problem, and it's like, oh, and I don't drink. Well, mm, you must be an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. Then no, I just don't drink. I just don't find it helpful for me in my life and the goals I'm pursuing and my health and things like that. And people just still assume you have a problem, and so that's a weird sort of vibe, I think, in our culture. But I know Dr. Andrew Huberman has talked a ton about alcohol. So if you're interested in learning more about that, the effects and things that it does to your brain and body, I would definitely search him out. But I also have done a podcast episode about my experience with not drinking for a whole year and what that did for my brain, my body, my health, my relationships, things of that nature. So if you're interested in any of that, check it out. So here, let's go back to what Mark is saying.
It would be absolutely impossible. In fact, today, if I just don't sleep quite right, I'm like, I feel it the next morning. And so I think, and maybe this comes back to why I don't totally trust people after they're successful, because usually after they're successful, they're like in their 50s and they are really cranky about their sleep and their nutrition and their exercise. And they think it's a really, really big deal. And you don't remember that when you're 23, you're fucking indestructible. You can kind of get away with anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. I did this book a couple years ago with Chris Bosch. He was telling me this story about flying with LeBron James. And they're all on the Heat. And LeBron is like doing yoga in the aisle of the team plane. And they're all laughing at him. And this was like still like 3 or 4 years ago that he's telling me this. And he's like, we're all making fun of him and busting his balls about it. And he's like, he's the only one of us that's still playing.
Yeah.
And so it is true that some of these are things you can't understand until you're older. And yet there's also this element of the earlier you understand them, even just partially, even if you're just paying lip service to them or only partly investing in them, they have profound returns later. It's the same. It's like, I don't know, same putting money in a retirement account. Like putting $100 in when you're 20 is just profoundly different than putting $100 in when you're 30.
Yeah.
Because of the power of compounding interest in time.
Hello, everyone on TikTok. Thanks for sharing the live, Ben. Appreciate it. Check out the merchandise that we got linked in below. Full stream on YouTube. If not, you're just going to hear some pauses in between me and the episode that I'm watching and reacting to. So cheers.
It's an interesting analogy because, I think if we're talking longevity or like sustained energy over time, then it makes a ton of sense to me.
When it's like asking yourself, am I doing something that is a short-term sprint or am I trying to do this thing for a long time? And oftentimes there's parts of it. It's like you might be running this company, but you're in this industry for a long time. Or you might be working on this, but then you're in this marriage for a long time. In the conflicting, contradicting incentives of the short term of one and the long term of the other, that's the balance you got to figure out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that balancing act really becomes more apparent down the road. So I guess if you do get good at it early, you will be more prepared. Because I had to go through a very ugly and painful transition, through my 30s into my 40s. Kind of get my shit together. So I guess what I'm saying is the advice that quote unquote successful people give to aspiring people, it's not so much about how to be successful. It's about how to prepare yourself to stay successful over a long period of time.
Yes. Yeah. You see this too, like another example of it, and this might be too inside baseball, but like people are like, you're listening to a successful person give you the math on self-publishing or self-funding or bootstrapping or whatever. And it's like, this is only their experience in light of having succeeded.
Mhm.
And you,
Again, like I said very early on in this stream from this conversation, it's like you want to take advice from people who are 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, not who are 47 steps ahead of you, because they don't understand what it's like to be in your shoes anymore. They're so far past that. But the person that's 1 or 2 steps ahead, they can give really sound advice that you're just right around the corner from needing, and then you can digest that, try to apply it, and it makes a lot more sense than the guy who's on episode 1 of his podcast taking advice from Chris Williamson, who's done 1,000 episodes. It's like there's too far of a gap in between there. But how do you can you take advice from a podcaster who's 100 episodes in and you're on your first one? Absolutely, because there's not that much gap there to think about. What's Rob saying? Rob said over on YouTube, definitely feel there. I miss being a machine when it came to nutrition, purely eating for fuel and what's best for you. I didn't drink and eat junk food for years, but now I do, and it's it's miserable, honestly. Yeah, I understand what you mean, Rob. Here we go. Let's get back.
don't know how it's going to pan out for you now. And so actually what the best path is very different. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very clear once it's worked.
Yes.
What you should have done.
Yeah.
But you don't know if it's going to work. And so it really is like, what are the sort of just more foundational, general best practices, not like the person just wishing they could have done it slightly differently.
Yeah. I also just think that like, that's the advice people want to hear.
Yes.
Right. Like if you're a startup founder and you're completely lost and you've tried like multiple iterations of a product, you have no customers, nothing's working, you're running out of money. Like there's a piece of you that wants the answer to be 5:30, get some sunlight.
Yeah.
Drink a papaya smoothie. Like that's what's going to work.
Yeah.
So I think there's a demand. There's just a massive demand for that message. And in this day and age, any message that has a demand is going to be met by somebody.
Yes. Right. No, like aspiring writers want to know what fucking program to use
What
and
font to write in.
Yeah, what pencils or how do you find an agent? And it's like, because the advice of like, you have to make something that's really good that people want is so obvious. And then also like, obviously the main thing they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And it's more fun to fiddle at the margins.
Yeah.
Literally like, it's like, like what?
Yeah. The advice is just to fucking write. I'm 441 episodes into my podcast and people ask, how do I have a podcast that people listen to? Do a fucking shitload of episodes. Anything. You have to do a shitload of reps. You have to have immense time under tension. Because then you actually learn what works by throwing some shit against the wall. Okay, that works. Okay, I'm going to go more time under tension, more reps. Then I review, iterate, execute, change, and then move forward. But it's always going to be down to the basics. The basics are actually doing the thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then once you reach a certain level, escape velocity, whatever that they're talking about, then you can sort of review some of your things, more healthier practices, be motivated by a different set of things rather than all this extrinsic motivation or running away from something. You're running towards something, or you start doing the thing because you actually like doing the thing. But it's all time under tension and reps. That's like, you don't need like Ryan's talking about, you don't need a special pencil or like a certain thing that you write about, or you don't need to worry about the fucking font. You need to just write and then go from there,
what does your screen look like? And it's like there's not a market in delivering that.
I mean, if only.
It's to say, I talk to young professional wrestlers all the time who are like, how do I make it? It's like, you got to be good. Like, it doesn't matter sort of the flashier gear that you have. Like, you have to have the basics down. You have to be able to execute in the ring on a consistent basis over and over and over again. And then what are the other things that make you stand out? Your intangibles, your characteristics, your traits, your promo ability, sort of the way you move, the way you emote. And then on top of that, how you look in the ring. Do you look like a legit fighter, right? Your gear, does it look professional and real? But the basic foundation foundational piece has to be there of you being able to execute in the ring so that fans are drawn into your match. And then you have to build from there. You're not going to build a skyscraper without digging deep into the ground, right? You're not going to build a building without a blueprint first. You have to have those basic fundamentals first, and then you have to move from there.
The right pin or the right font, determined that.
Yeah. So how have you thought about this lately? Because you seem to really be into video and social and stuff now. How are you thinking about? Because again, you could just peace out, but you're just what gets you excited about this?
The short answer to that is like, I'm really enjoying scaling out the kind of online media side of this career, and it's funny because I'm actually enjoying it a lot more than I enjoy writing books, and that was a little bit of an epiphany for me a couple of years ago. I think what happened, I'd forgotten that I started my career being an internet guy, right?
Yeah.
Just posting a bunch of blogs and shit on Facebook and seeing what stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I lived it and breathed it. And eventually, as part of that process of growing that online audience and that online following, I did a book deal. And then that book deal turned into just like an absurdly mega bestseller. And I think what happened then is because the most successful thing I had ever done was write a book, I assumed, oh, I must be an author.
Yes.
This is
narrative and identity are very tricky and deceiving.
Yes. So it was what the world was rewarding me for. It was what everybody knew me for doing. It was the thing I was most validated for. It was the thing I was making the most money doing. So I'm like, I guess I'm an author now. So I wrote a bunch of books and they went well. They did very well. But I burned myself out and I struggled a lot mentally during that period. And so then I came back to kind of doing the online stuff a few years ago and I loved it.
Yeah.
Like fucking, like I'm a dog just chasing a car. I'm like, yeah, show me the numbers. Let me go viral. I want to see the numbers go up.
That's funny.
And so I'm having a blast doing it. I actually canceled a book deal.
Wow.
It was funny. I actually went to my publisher and I said, I want to like launch a podcast. And I want to do a lot more video content. So I want to push the book back a year or two. But I'll have a much bigger audience and I'll be able to test ideas and stuff. And they were like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then they threatened to cancel the contract. And so I said, yeah, sure. Here's your money.
Yeah.
And no regrets. So yeah, what I'm enjoying now is actually, it's very much I would call it the business media side of this career.
This is really important. I was just giving this talk at EO and I was talking about like, you have to find out why you got into the thing you got into and what's
we're pausing here because we got a wrestling comment that we have to address. I want to see Gunther get like Drew. That's my only complaint about Gunther. He's low-key got the physique of a drinking Big Mac enjoyer. I actually preferred Gunther when he was heavier set. I liked him as a thicker bodied wrestler. When I was in the ring with Gunther back in 2017, when we went under the name Walter, I thought he was more of sort of a larger presence when he was like had that thicker body. Drew McIntyre looks amazing. His presence is perfect for him being jacked. But Gunther's like an old school sort of throwback wrestler. And most of those guys like Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes, like those kind of guys weren't like bodybuilder physiques. They just like looked like grown fucking men who could beat the shit out of you. And so I don't like Gunther specifically like shredded out of his mind. I know he had to get in that shape because WWE wanted him to, but I do prefer him sort of more thicker. I thought that was like better for his character. So we'll see. But I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre and a huge fan of Gunther. So I had to pause to talk about personal development and self-help to get those wrestling comments in because we love professional wrestling around here.
the thing you like doing? So if you really love to cook and then you start a restaurant and then you spend all the time in the back office of the restaurant looking at vendors or whatever, or dealing with critics, or then like the rewards for you succeeding where that you don't get to do the thing you like
love. Yeah.
Now it might be that actually you love the energy of being in the restaurant and running the restaurant and actually cooking wasn't your main thing. It was just a means to getting there. You have to know that too. You have to know like what is the part of the thing that you actually like to do.
Yeah.
And then you have to hold on to that thing real tight as you succeed, because everything is going to be conspiring and incentivizing to make you not be able to do that thing as much. So for me, it's like the writing of the books is the thing I love the most, and so I have to be careful on the other things.
That's also kind of the issue of like starting up, right? If you're starting anything new as like an entrepreneur or anything like that, you're doing everything on your own. You're creating, you're posting, you're reaching out, you're doing this, you're doing that. And then when you actually get to sit down and do the thing, like when I actually get to sit down and record the podcast or talk on a stream or, read a book from a guest or whatever, like that's the fun part of it all. But then I got to do all these other things. Now I have a little bit of a team behind me, so I don't have to do everything all the time, but it's mostly just rests on my shoulders because it's my business. And so that's also a cool vibe about when you do get a little bit more successful and you have a little bit more money, you can delegate certain tasks, but then it also feels like I want to hold on tightly because I've built this thing up so much that if I let go of it, it could fall off. And the person that I give it off to could not love the thing as much as me. And so there's all these different dichotomies that start to happen when you do get a little bit more successful and you want to let go of certain things or delegate certain things. It feels like you're giving up your baby because you've built this thing from the ground up. And so there's all these hurdles that you're going to come across when you start getting more successful in your life. And it's hurdles that everyone has gone through. It's really nice now that we have the internet and people can talk about those types of things and we can actually relate to people's stories in terms of, oh, I'm going through this, this person went through this. What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? I mean, that's one of the upsides of like everyone putting out their stuff on the internet for people to see and watch and hear, because humans relate through story. That's why I love professional wrestling. That's why tons of people love professional wrestling, because we relate to the narrative. We relate to the story. We connect to that. We can invest in that. And there's a common humanity, a thread there that we can pull on that relates to something in our own life or something that we've been thinking about. And so I think that's also quite important as well.
Go, hey, I just told my wife the other day, she was like, how was work today or whatever. And I was like, I'm like in the middle of this book. And I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm dreading it continuing in the sense that I know at some point, like I'll get, this is the part that I love. Like I'm figuring it out and I'm in the middle of it and I want to stay here. And so it's like, okay, the decision for that is like, I'm not going to rush it. The publisher was like, so when do you want this? And, I was like, I'm not going to give them a date that means I get less time to do the thing. Like, I'll do this as long as I want to do it. Because that's what the reward for succeeding at your thing should be, that you get to not rush through it. But you have to know what that thing is.
This is it right here. This is it. We love a good babyface chase, a good hero's journey. That's all we're on, dude. Every single person is on the hero's journey. And what happens to the hero on the journey? They fall down. They get beat up. They get knocked down. It looks like they might die or lose. And then they get back up. And then they get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And then they eventually get a fucking sword and they cut the head off the fucking dragon. And now they're the fucking hero, the champion. And then there's another obstacle. Then there's another hurdle. Then there's another obstacle. Then there's another hurdle. And they keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why when a really good babyface in professional wrestling, which is a good guy, becomes champion, it's really hard to maintain a good babyface champion, because everyone loved this guy when he was on the chase, when he was climbing up the mountain. Will he win? Will he win? Will he win? Then he finally reaches the mountaintop and it's like, well, there's no more chase now. That's what happened to Cody Rhodes in the current moment. His current WWE championship run kind of sucks because everyone loved him on the chase, but now he's at the top of the mountain. It's like, we're kind of sick of it. And so that's what's great about being a human, is that you're always on the hero's journey. You're never exonerated from the work. It's a beautiful thing. There's always another hurdle or obstacle, and they're all going to make you stronger into the best version of yourself until you finally lay your head down for one last time. And you're like, yeah, that was a good fucking ride. That was a really good fucking ride. And that's the vibe right there, 100%.
And then you need the discipline and you need the confidence to go like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, not what you think I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And it's hard.
Yes.
Like it kind of comes back to the speaking thing, right? Like it's hard, especially when there's like financial incentive, especially when there's a lot of social validation, social pressure to say yes to certain things or do certain things. So, Yeah, that's been my big realization, is that I'm an internet guy.
Yeah.
And I always have been. And I will write another book, but it will be in the service of kind of the online media career, not the other way around.
Yes. It can just be so easy to
Pause. More wrestling takes. Cody. I love Cody Rhodes to death. He's the man, but he's very much at his best chasing. I totally agree. I totally agree. It's really hard to have a long run as a babyface champion. And so I think when Cody Rhodes finally defends the title against Drew McIntyre in this 3 stages of hell, that Drew McIntyre has to win. And Drew McIntyre has to win the WWE Undisputed Championship, and he has to carry that championship into WrestleMania. Super important. Super important. And then Cody can get back on the chase post WrestleMania or whatever the case may be. But that's really, really, really important for Cody Rhodes and his character and his development. But yeah, if you are on TikTok, please check out the merchandise that we got linked down below. We got Dad Club for the dads and mental health stuff in the TikTok shop, and the full streams over on YouTube. So here we go, back at it.
essentially punish yourself with success, right? So the success means you don't get to do the thing you love anymore. And then you wonder why more and more success isn't
Making you happy.
making you
Yeah.
happier. It's because it's actually taking you away from what you like. It's like you're a coach. I just love working with athletes. And it's like, okay, but you just took this promotion and now it's actually your assistants who are doing the part of the job that you
Yeah.
like. And to have, like, I remember my dad, I think about this all the time. My dad was a police detective and he got promoted. He took the sergeant's test. He became a sergeant. And like the way it would work is your promotion is like you then start at the bottom of the totem pole of the new thing. So it's like he's the sergeant, but he's not supervising police detectives. He's a sergeant at the jail, like the shittiest place. And he was like, what have I done? He's like, they make TV shows and movies about detectives.
Yeah.
And he just realized like, oh, I liked doing this thing. But because, you know, obviously you take the next thing, you rewarded yourself with the thing that less people want or that you yourself don't want. And so knowing what that thing is like the whole game.
It's funny. I've experienced something similar to your dad, but in reverse. So for all the 2010s, especially,
I mean, we always think we should take the next promotion, the next job, but what if you just really love the thing you're doing in the very moment? Well, what if you get an extra, get a $30,000 raise every year if I take this promotion, but it's going to give you less time to actually do the thing which you very much enjoy doing. And so we can't always be motivated by money or extrinsic rewards. Like, of course, we need money. Money's important. Money buys us things. Money buys us more convenience or freedom or whatever the case may be, and the basic things we need to survive in life. But the promotion doesn't always mean that it's better. If you just, again, like if you just love doing the thing, this is what you love to do, and the promotion takes you away from that, even though you get an extra $40,000 a year, whatever the case may be, that's a decision that you're going to have to make based on what you want in your life. And that's why, again, I talk about goal setting or target setting or success in general. One of the most important words is clarity, clarity on who you are and what you actually want and what your first principles are. And if the promotion or the next thing actually lines up with those first principles, then okay, let's go for it.
when the books were taking off, everybody kept telling me, keep your team as lean as possible. Don't hire a big team. Don't do all this crazy stuff. Like, just keep it simple, outsource everything. You don't want to be a manager. You don't want to have to deal with people. And I was like, okay, I don't want to have to deal with anybody. So I kept a super lean team, super small. We didn't do anything crazy. And then a couple of years ago, when I decided to start scaling up this side of the business, I started building the team. Yeah. And now we're up to like 21, 22 people. Dude, I fucking love having a team.
I had a very similar experience.
It's awesome. Yes. I'm like, this is so much fun. I wish I did this 10 years ago.
It can be hard sometimes when you're like, wait, did I just have to deal with like 3 HR issues this week or whatever? There's definitely, there's downsides to everything. But yeah, you're like, wait, I was just taking this out of me. Like someone was still doing and worrying about all the things. It was just me.
Yeah.
And that book, Die With Zero, he talks about like this idea. He's like, you're stealing money from your poorer self that your richer self won't care about.
Yes.
His point is like, if you're a doctor, you're not going to make a lot of money your first couple of years. But if you're like living very lean, you're kind of being an idiot because you know for a fact that in the future you're going to be all right, and you should be able to be able to make reasonable decisions about, like, you don't need to drive this clunker car if, like, in the future and so sometimes you're like, well, I don't know, and you're playing it too safe, and really the savings there are just coming out of your sanity, connections you could have had, cool work you could have done that you didn't know about. And also, like, Casey Neistat said to me once, you do work not to make money, but you do work to do more cool work. Right. And so it's like, wait, isn't this what
this is the whole point?
The whole point is to work with cool people and do things that you're proud of, hopefully at a bigger level than you were doing before. And sometimes I do think we over celebrated the kind of lean, solo, no strings attached. It's like, I like that my success means other people can buy their first house or,
Yeah, I mean, it's again the same idea we've been talking about. It's like there's always going to be different stages of your life. At the beginning, you don't have fucking any money to buy a team, so you have to literally do everything yourself. And then, like I said, at least in my case, when you do everything yourself and you start to have the ability to get a team or outsource or buy certain things or spend money on certain things, you're like, it's hard to let go because you've held this thing so tightly to your chest, like it's your baby, and you've grown it from the ground up. And I've done 441 episodes, and now I want to let it go and get an editor and this type of thing. And it's like, well, what if they fuck the whole thing up? But then you realize, like, it's okay. You have to let go. This is how growth happens. This is how we build even more, if that's the goal, if that's what you want. And I've had one guy working with me basically the whole time of my podcast. His name is Ben. He's my video editor, and we've added a few other pieces. But like, it's been a cool journey for us to grow together. 441 episodes, top 40 podcasts in the education category on Apple. It's like pretty cool stuff. And I relate to what these guys are talking about in terms of, doing the thing you love, and there's going to be different seasons and all that type of stuff. And Rob said, the 20s are all about sacrifice. So like you said, depends on position in life, what step you're at. Yeah, 100%. You got to know exactly where you're at in your life for you. Again, clarity, who you are, what you want, and the direction you're going into. That's why instead of goal setting, I call it target setting, because we're aiming at something. Here we go, back at a few more minutes of this show. At least to this podcast only has 2 minutes left. We'll see how long I talk.
We're able to like do X, Y, or Z. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
That's also success.
Yeah. And I get why, again, it comes back to your point of just like knowing who you are and what you want. Because now there's this whole movement around solopreneurs and whatnot. And I totally get it. There's some people that...
Pause. Got a question on TikTok. The sun is rising. You watched the Piers Morgan interview with Nick? No, I did not. I try to not watch Piers Morgan because that show fucking sucks. So was it a good interview? I heard it wasn't. Anyways, here we go.
That's the optimal way to do it. Like, you don't want to have to deal with anybody else. But looking back, I think I was just maybe intimidated or brushed it off. I wish I had been a little bit more aggressive in the past with that.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Well, cool, man. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Do another short one sometime.
Yeah. Am I saying this? I'm asking this purely of selfish egotistical reasons. Am I the most frequent guest on Daily Stoic?
I don't know. Because I think we've done it remote once or twice, and then in person maybe once or twice.
I think this is 4 or 5.
It's somewhere near the top. I usually have set the record on most people's things because I've done the most buzz, and it's like kind of uncomfortable. You even ask, to be like, hey, Rich Roll, can I come on for the 7th time?
Yeah.
It's like, so usually I have the record on everyone's things.
Well,
but I think the model of like, oh, I already had them on is weird.
Yeah.
Unless your podcast is like, I get their life story. I've been doing this kind of shorter. And look, maybe the people can tell me they hate them, but I think the shorter ones where you're just like checking in or shooting the shit about a few things, I think it's better. And I think most podcasts are just not, even though we just did a 3-hour one. But I think 40 minutes is also good.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes can be good.
Yeah.
Like not everything needs to be this fucking marathon.
Epic. Yeah.
Because I usually make myself, I get like 20 or 30% of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Obviously, like the whole point of the conversation, of any sort of conversation in regards to mindset or mental health, is to like get the best out of the conversation, right? Not everything has to be the Joe Rogan sort of 3 hour conversation where there's a bunch of muck in the middle that's kind of boring and they talk about some meaningless shit for a while. But that's like the Joe Rogan deal, right? Like my favorite podcast is the Rich Roll podcast, and like Rich asks really insightful, important questions, and it feels like there's a lot of important information throughout, And so I think it's totally fun. Like I do a bunch of solo episodes, and those solo episodes are range between 15 to 40 minutes because I'm trying to distill the best information possible so it's digestible and you can take action on it. Most of my guest episodes are 60 to 90 minutes. And so I think that's sort of the time frame that people listen to, and I don't have any ads. There's barely any intro. It's just sort of right into the episode because I think the conversation and wanting to give that valuable information is most important to me because I've consumed so many different podcasts that have a 45-minute intro and then there's 12 ads throughout. It's like, that's just like, no, not my flavor. I think that's again why people really like Joe Rogan, because it's like just a conversation. It's very organic. And I'm trying to sort of not emulate that, but like I want the conversation to be the most important part so that people can actually extrapolate the information, apply it to their lives, and become the best version of themselves. So I think there's like 30 seconds left here. Let's see what they have to say.
And then something new comes out and I never go back to the one I was listening to. Well, cool, man.
Awesome.
That's it. Great. That was a good episode. Let's stop sharing. Here we go. Layout. There we go. Boom, boom. Now you can see my full face. There we go. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that conversation. I actually enjoyed that because it wasn't super long. And so I could really comment throughout. Let's see what he said. Rob said Piers Morgan is mid and Nick has been mid too. He now supports the Venezuelan war after being anti-war. It's hypocrisy. Well, Nick Fuentes is a joke. He he's not a good person, hates Jews, hates black people, hate gays, is not someone that we should follow or think is like an important person in the conversation, but he does have a large audience, and it is what it is. But yeah, I can't watch Piers Morgan anymore. It's too screamy and yelly, and Piers doesn't know how to have a conversation with anyone. He interrupts and interrupts and interrupts and interrupts and interrupts, and like no one can ever finish their fucking point. My boy Jake Donnelly was on one of his episodes a couple weeks ago, and it's like, man, just let the guy finish his point. He has a good point, and then Piers Morgan's interrupts and interrupts and interrupts. It's like the whole fucking thing is a car crash. His episodes, and that's why he has millions of views, but it's not something that I want to pay attention to. But anyways, yeah, that was a good pod. I appreciate that. I appreciate the insights from Ryan Holiday and from Mark Manson. So that's cool. That was a good stream. Thanks, Rob, for joining over on YouTube. I appreciate that. Anyone else who watched and paid attention and got some valuable information from that, sweet. If you like that podcast, or you watch this or listen to this or whatever the case may be, please do check out my podcast. It's called Something for Everybody. That's on all major podcast platforms. Our most recent episode 441, was basically your guide to reflecting on 2025 so you can have a great 2026. So certainly check that out if that's of interest to you. And I will see you guys next time on wherever I'm at, wherever you're at. I hope you take good care of yourselves. Hope you have a good day. Send some love, send some appreciation, some gratitude for life. Remember, gratitude postures us for the miracles of life. And every day that you're alive and breathing is a fucking miracle. So I'll see you guys next time. God bless.